Hello everyone and welcome to the Reality Whisperer Webcast. I know it's been a few weeks since I've done my last webcast. I have certainly missed it. I have just certainly really enjoyed a lot of the past guests that we've had on the Reality Whisperer Webcast. So I'm very glad that I was able to come back this week and begin it all over again. And so right now I'm in a temporary location. I'm just currently looking for a new place to hang my hat, so to speak. So the next few days I'm going to be doing some house hunting and looking for a new place. So right now I'm in this temporary area and I'm currently on the Wi-Fi connection tonight. So if the broadcast seems a little glitchy, that's basically why, as I am on a Wi-Fi network. But hopefully everything holds out so we can have a really exciting broadcast for all of you this evening. And I want to thank everybody on the chat room for joining live. So what we're going to do first, let me just get a little bit comfortable here on my chair, or my couch I should say. What we're going to do first is we're going to be going over through some announcements for some upcoming events that are going to be happening in the month of October. And the very first one is The Nature of Incarnation and the Soul's Blueprint. This is again going to be hosted by Portal to Ascension. And you can go to portaltoascension.com. That's portaltoascension.com to find out more information about this upcoming event. It's going to be happening on October 6th. From 12 p.m. to 2 p.m. Pacific time, and I'm going to be looking into a lot of information that I have received through channeling, through accessing the universal mind throughout these past 8 years, and there's been profound information about incarnation, about looking into the soul's blueprint. So it's going to be a very educational, very inspirational, and very enlightening event that's coming up. And again, that is hosted by Portal to Ascension. So feel free to go to portaltoascension.com and you can feel free to register for this event. And of course, there's a lot of other exciting upcoming events happening in Portal to Ascension. It's growing by leaps and bounds. So I'm again very happy to be a part of the Portal to Ascension family with my good friend Neil Gore. He's doing an exceptional job of bringing Portal to Ascension to the next level. So I look forward to this upcoming event again on October 6th. So the second event that's coming up is going to be on October 9th, and this is called Adronis Building the Light Body. Now, Adronis is going to show you how you can construct your light body. This is something that, information-wise, has never been disclosed before. I haven't even really seen anybody talk a lot about the construction of the light body. But Adronis is basically going to be giving his own hands-on techniques, so to speak, relating to how he is able to construct a light body and actually have a channeling interaction with me. And so he's basically sharing his own unique techniques about how one can construct the light body, how you will be able to use it as an interdimensional vessel, being able to explore different dimensions, certain meditations that will be used in being able to develop the light body and activate the light body and actually being able to transit yourself into different dimensional realities. So it's going to be very wild. I too am just looking forward to just sitting back and being the observer and just allowing Adronis to share all this perspective about how one can construct, build, operate, activate, and utilize their own light body. So again, very exciting information. And again, that'll be happening on Sunday, October 9th at 12 p.m. Pacific, 3 p.m. Eastern. Again, you can go to realitywhisperer.com to register for this event. This will include live and on-demand viewing. So again, that is Adronis Building the Light Body, taking place on October 9th. Okay, so we're going to be getting into our presentation this evening, and we're going to be looking into these particular concepts, these points of simultaneous lifetimes. So I'm just going to be reading out the bullet points here, and I'll be coming back to this slide on occasion. Tonight we're going to be talking about the past, the future, and the now perspective. The boundaries of parallel experiences, the free will governance, aligning to different parallel selves, shifting to parallel realities, and interacting with parallel selves. And of course, later on, after the presentation is concluded, then we'll be taking some Q&A from the chat room. So again, thank you everybody on the chat room who's here tonight. I hope you guys enjoy this presentation this evening on simultaneous lifetimes. And also for next week, we're going to have a special guest coming in. And our special guest will be Psychic Bob Hickman. He's looking to come on board here next week on the Reality Whisperer Webcast. And we'll be taking some live questions, live readings on the air. So I'm going to be talking with Bob here very soon and bringing him on the air, and I'm really looking forward to a really exciting event with him. There's also the channel panel that's going to be happening in October. You can go to trebchanneling.com. It'll tell you more about it, which I will be a part of, and it's going to be a very large capacity for the channel panel this year. So I'm really looking forward to that taking place again in October. So again, you can go to trebchanneling.com and find out more about that. Bob Hickman will also be a part of the channel panel, so we'll be talking a lot about that in the upcoming next week upcoming Reality Whisperer Webcast. Okay, so now let's move on to simultaneous lifetimes. Now again, I have been doing the Akashic Records since about late 2009, early 2010. I've always wanted to find out more about how the Akashic Records worked and how we're able to access these different aspects of ourselves, being able to look into what we could consider to be a past lifetime or future lifetime, being able to look into people, places, events, and things. And throughout my experiences working with the Akashic Records, I've just been very, very amazed about how looking into other people's Akashic Records as well, too, through their permission, being able to get an observation of these different parallel selves as if they are directly in front of me right now. And the reason is because they are. So when we're looking at the idea of parallel lifetimes, all of us are contained in a state of sequence. So basically this sequence is what I refer to as the now continuum. We are basically here on this planet in a now continuum, and that this planet represents a mainframe. It represents all of our energies functioning together as a collective continuum. And so what is very, very amazing is even though we have a finite Earth, we have infinite possibilities contained within this planet. We have infinite possibilities contained within ourselves. The animals have an infinite possibility contained within themselves. The nature, the small little blades of grass, the small grains of sand, have infinite possibilities contained within themselves. And so when we're looking at the idea of simultaneous lifetimes or just simultaneous being, at every particular given moment we have the opportunity to become someone anew. Now basically, let's give the idea of a constructed example. If that a person in that sense who maybe has been working in a drugstore for a minimum wage, $8 an hour, in Canadian terms, $8 an hour in a drugstore, and they just feel that they have been working diligently at this job, coming back to it, working full-time, 40 hours a week, working non-stop, and just getting absolutely drained about working in this drugstore. And they feel that they're going through a lot of suffering. They're basically only doing what they're doing for the means of a paycheck. That they just come to work, they leave work, they go home, they rest for a bit, they come back the next morning, and they do it all over again. And to them, this is one of the ultimate states of suffering. And they cannot imagine any other particular parallel version of themselves that would represent something of an advancement past this. They could not imagine being able to become a musician, a painter, a teacher, an artist, etc. All of that is just a foreign concept to them. Yet in that particular moment, from this person, Joe, for example, who is working in the drugstore, Joe has the ability in any particular given moment to shift the perspective and now adopt and align thought forms and feelings that represent any of those particular given examples in regards to what may be exciting to him, to explore, to pursue. So, for example, if Joe wanted to be a musician, sure, he's plucked away the guitar, he's played the drums, but he never thought that he could be anything in regards to a music idol in that way. Nonetheless, that is capable of happening to him. So basically, when we're looking into a theme of where Joe is working in the drugstore, and where Joe could also be this pop idol, that is a bridge of possibility. Now, what prevents Joe from going into accessing that parallel version of himself? His own validity about how he sees his value. Which means that each and every single one of us have not only one possibility of a parallel aspect that we can look at, but many. And in order for us to become the parallel version of that aspect, we need to give validity, and we need to become the vibrational frequency of what that person represents. So if that is a musician, if that is an artist, if that is a teacher, if that's someone who moved to Spain, if that's someone who moved to Australia, if that's someone looking to become an astronaut, whatever it may be, we are basically giving ourselves permission to align and allot the appropriate realities that are connotative to the thoughts and the feelings that we are able to therefore project to making this reality happen. This is basically accessing our own parallel selves. Because if Joe right now is working at the drugstore, and that's Drugstore Joe, there is Music Joe, there is Teacher Joe, there is Spiritual Teacher Joe, there is Astronaut Joe. And all of these parallel versions of Joe exist simultaneously. And the only way that we are capable of experiencing those timelines is when we have some type of relationship that forges a connection that allows Joe to feel what it is like to be a musician, to feel what it is like to be a teacher, to feel what it is like to be an astronaut. And so again, we can look into this as the aspect of the law of attraction and repulsion, is that we are being able to give ourselves permission to attract the events, the circumstances, the feeling of being able to pursue the actions of becoming an astronaut, of becoming a musician, and being able to think like one, being able to act like one, becoming able to feel like one. And that is how we're moving into becoming a parallel self. So for example, when I am channeling Adronis, when I'm bringing him through, I don't feel like Brad anymore. That's basically the best way I can put it, is that when I'm channeling him, when I'm connecting this serious consciousness to myself, I don't feel like I have this, happy human ego, or feel like I have this, happy human grounded state of being here anymore. I basically feel the switch. I basically feel like myself, like I'm wearing blonde hair, like I have blue eyes, like I'm this tall, 7-foot Syrian Nordic, and being able to work through his personality and being able to channel him in that way. Now again, that's another parallel self of Adronis. That's basically what he represents to me. And so I become that vibration. And that is how we are able to access all of these different parallel lifetimes. Well, Brad, is it possible that we can access these parallel lifetimes, just be aware of them, by actually not even becoming them, but just having a witnessing of it? Well, that's basically what our dreams do. Our dreams are helping us to witness these different versions of ourselves. So when we go into the dream state at night, we start seeing other parallel versions of ourselves that are leading entirely different lives, that we start meeting other people in our dreams that we have never met in physical life. Then this is us being able to play with the subconscious and being able to look into different parallel versions, because in that dream state we simply snap to it and we're observing these other different forms of parallel realities. Meditation, again, can do this as well. If we have an intention to connect with, for example, an Atlantean self that we feel connected to, we need to give some type of permission slip to being able to go back into Atlantis and being able to give that observation. And so our observation of intent is allowing ourselves to look in observation about this other particular lifetime, because there's some morsel of a bridge of connection between our physical selves and between this version, this Atlantean self of us, that we're now able to observe in a deep meditative state. So we start receiving visions. We start getting ideas about what this Atlantean went through. And the reason we're able to access that is because there is some type of rapport of mutual consciousness that has formed a memory abridgment between that one parallel version of that Atlantean self and ourselves. So we have basically been able to create that type of perspective, that type of witnessing that represents our connection into being able to observe Atlantis, observing the Atlantean self. Well, Brad, if that's true, why do so many people have different versions of Atlantis? There are many people who feel that they've lived maybe 50,000 years ago, and were able to describe the architecture somewhat differently, perhaps from someone like Plato. Or, how does this happen? It's because, again, we all emerge from different dimensions. And that's the very important thing, is that as we are all parallel beings ourselves, we don't always come from universes that have a collective concept about how Atlantis existed, or about how Babylon existed, or how Mesopotamia existed, etc. All of these can be different perspectives because we all just come from different dimensional gateways. So we are basically looking at the histories as it pertains to fact that relate to the collective continuity concept of how this universe portrays such ancient civilizations. So like the idea of Atlantis, or like the idea of ancient Egypt, or like the idea of ancient Sumeria, etc. That is how this universe, in its state of factual, contemplative, conceptual understanding in regards to memory, has been able to determine that energy of those ancient civilizations. That does not mean that that is always going to stay the facts or the ways that it is in other particular universes. So again, this is also looking in parallel aptitudes in different frames, such as locations, such as how history has moved itself together. So when we're actually going into hypnosis sessions or deep meditative sessions, we have seen that there can be different perspectives as it relates to the energies of other people having these different lives, like what we could refer to as the past. So the past is not always going to be solid. The past is simply what we can refer to as some type of continuity that is indigenous to this collective, universal reality. So that's, again, just giving a bit of a discourse in regards to the idea of past and parallel selves, and that the now continuum allows us the opportunity to actually access different perspectives, because everything is frozen within the now moment. Everything is here, so everything is accessible, right? But the whole idea is this: we can only access what we have relationship with. So we have to have relationship with the idea of what it is to be a musician, a parallel musician version of ourselves, or a parallel spiritual teacher of ourselves, or a parallel astronaut version of ourselves. We cannot attract those particular people if we are not familiar with the vibrational frequency of energy that they represent. So for example, if it's a rocket scientist and we have no idea about how to form any type of relationship with the idea of a rocket scientist version of ourselves, then we're not going to be able to attract that. It goes the same with many other different beings that exist within our world in different dimensions, beyond our world as extraterrestrials. We really don't know how to interface together with them because there's no relationship rapport. And that is the most important part about being a parallel dimensional traveler. Because any time that you are noticing a change of theme within your reality, we are noticing that you're becoming this, from, again, Drugstore Joe, from becoming Drugstore Joe to all of a sudden moving into a musician, that is you becoming the transitional effect of many different parallel selves that reaches a conjunction of a theme that is now telling you, oh, I'm now musician Joe. Because now I've been able to go to many different gigs, I've been able to perform in many different places, I now got a deal, now I'm starting to create my own first album. This is amazing. I never thought I could do this. Now I'm looking back at myself and seeing how much I've changed. All of that particular transition was you going through billions upon billions of parallel lifetimes in order for you to transform from Drugstore Joe to Music Joe, right? That's basically how it works. That's how it operates. So basically, in that sense, we have the capability to have some type of rapport and be somewhat familiar subconsciously with different parallel versions of ourselves through meditation, through hypnosis, through dream states, to actually being able to access these parallel versions of ourselves. But again, what we're discovering the most of is actually becoming these parallel selves, these parallel versions of ourselves. And again, that's all possible through relationship. And that again goes to the boundary. So let me move on to the presentation screen here again. Hopefully you guys can hear me okay. I'm hoping that the internet is holding up okay here. But it looks like everything's good. Okay, so we've looked at the past, the future, and now perspective. The boundaries of parallel experience. So again, this is all part of the free will governance, which we're going to get into. So the boundaries of parallel experience and the free will governance. So again, what is free will all about? When I say free will to you, what does it mean? Well, Brad, it's will that's free. Okay, that's good. You get an A+ for that. All right, very good. Well, basically what I'm referring to is the aspect of choice through confusion, right? In order for you to have free will, you need to be firstly confused. And in order for you to be confused, you are basically feeling oblivious to everything that is around you. You do not know about what's happening in the next moment. All you're basically doing right now is just existing here and now. And so having that state of confusion, what is the catalyst that brings about clarity to confusion? That clarity is choice. And that represents the idea of free will. How do we make a choice? How do we actually allow a decision to be made? We find some type of rapport that feels valid. So validity with rapport. And that is how we develop a state of choice. Now that validity does not always have to be something positive. It's something that can also be very negative. So if we feel that we're in a rut and there's no way out, and that we're just going to continue to dwell, I'm just going to go ahead and sit in my room and pout all day. Well, that's the choice that I made because I think that's the valid feeling that I'm getting in regards to this state of suffering that I'm sensing, is that I'm going to go inside my room, I'm going to pout all day, and I'm just going to say how much life sucks, right? Now that is basically a validity within myself. Does not mean that that is a positive validity. Does not mean that that must be the quote-unquote the answer to the entire situation. But I have made that decision because that is how I give validity to the situation that I'm in. Therefore, I make a decision and saying I can't deal with this. There's no way I can overcome this. I need to go inside my bedroom. I need to curl up into a ball, and I need to yell out loud, "Life sucks!" Right? And that's my decision. So again, that took a validity in order to do that. I gave so much power for this parallel option of myself to get up from this couch, to walk inside the bedroom, to slam the door, to go into bed, to curl up into a ball, hit the bed really hard and say, "Life sucks," right? That took a lot of power to do, right? Even though we feel that all we're doing is just wallowing around and just feeling sorry for ourselves and that, we're just continuously swimming in this ocean of suffering. But again, that takes a lot of effort to do that because that is all part of a decision-making process. So basically, what this is saying is that parallel versions of ourselves will always function in different polarities, which means that we can always attract negatively influenced aspects of ourselves that again want to wallow, that feel apathetic, that feel that there is no way out to the aspect of suffering. That is their validity. That is therefore validity. And the universe will not, in any particular way, say, "That's not possible. Don't do that. Stop feeling sorry for yourself. Get up off your ass and do something useful." It's not going to say that to you, right? It's all part that the universe is just a natural reflection through all of our wholeness, to everything that represents ourselves. The parallelness of ourselves is available at every moment, and we're creating all of these different perspectives. So what brings us into this aspect of attracting more parallelness into this state of suffering? Because we don't feel that there's anything better. We have not developed a relationship with anything else that feels better than how we feel right now about going into our bedroom and pouting and saying life sucks. Nothing has presented itself in regards to the rapport of relationship to attract another parallel self, to allow ourselves to get up from that bed and saying, "Oh my goodness, I have discovered my joy. I have found another parallel version to lock onto," right? So that is giving us the idea of our free will. So our free will governance creates the boundaries in regards to the possibilities of the different types of parallel versions of ourselves that we're able to align to. And that is again what creates the idea of saying, "Well, Brad, why can't we just go into like another planet that's completely different? Why don't we go into another Earth that's maybe even more beautiful, that has just indigenous surroundings all around it, that there's no cities. We can just go into a beautiful Earth where everything is wilderness, everything is beauty, the waters are pristine, the air is beautiful. Why can't we just go into that?" That's a very good question, and I would absolutely love to experience an Earth like that. And again, not to get off topic, I feel our Earth will become that very, very soon. Now, basically, here's the answer. You can experience an Earth like that within here, but not here, right? This physical reality is a contractual collective agreement. So when we are existing in this particular reality, and because there are 7 billion other human beings upon this planet, we have all collectively agreed, subconsciously, to create an Earth like this. To basically have an Earth where there are cities, where there are pollutions, where there has been contaminated water, where there has been contaminated air, where there has been governmental control, where there has been all of this. This is all part of a collective agreement, which means there is no singular intention of bailout based upon this Earth. Why? Because that is collective free will governance. So collective free will governance has created this grid, this nexus, this matrix that represents the Earth in this particular way. Now, certain minute changes can certainly happen towards the state of individual, because what they are doing is they're playing the child in the sandbox analogy, which means that even though the Earth collectively has functioned in this way where there is a lot of metropolises, there's a lot of pollution, etc., but what they have done is they have created a small version of their own world and have worked together in their own state of imagination, in their own state of intention, and in their own state of joy to bring the best out of what is available as it relates to the Earth right here and now. And so that is basically their own intention, to manifest a world that is of their own example of what they feel they can create. And it's like a child in a sandbox, because the child is now with a shovel and a bucket, and it's now starting to build these beautiful castles made of sand. And even although all that's around them is sand, they have created the experience that this is the most blissful planet that they could ever experience, because they have immersed themselves into a world that they prefer. And that's what we're doing, right? We're basically taking morsels out of everything that we love about this Earth, even though collectively it's been going through a lot of problems. But we're taking the morsels out of this Earth that we prefer, and we're making it into that type of world for ourselves. And there is nothing in creation that prevents you from doing that. On a collective world level, the world is as it is. It will have cities, it will have pollution, it will have dirty water, it will have dirty air, etc. That's just part of the collective creation. But when we're looking into our own singular creation, we're again taking the best qualities out of Earth, we're taking the best qualities out of ourselves, and we're making our own personal Earth possible through the collective intent of relationship. And that is how we create an Earth that is so pristine, that is so beautiful, because we are treating it well. We are making this Earth part of a reality that we prefer. So again, the collective approach pertaining to the matrix of the Earth is all based upon that free will governance of collective intent, collective consciousness intention. That is why our Earth is the way it is. And that again, we are still working together with the collective, but again, we're creating our own worlds within the collective to making it feel that this is something that is important to us. This is something that we value. This is something that is joyful. This is something that we're producing and manifesting and feeling great about. And that's how we invoke change, through the collective consciousness, because with enough people in a majority level, as it relates to the collective of humanity on this planet, when enough people start doing that, now the Earth corresponds in regards to that collective malleability rather than a singular malleability. So the collective malleability now starts to move itself into higher percentages, because more and more people are playing the child in the sandbox analogy. They are again just in a box of sand, but they're making the most beautiful things possible out of the Earth, out of their own surrounding. They're making their Earth wondrous. They're making the people within their reality wondrous, because they have selected the aspect of joy. And so now we're all aligning into different parallel streams of being able to merge ourselves into a different parallel Earth, that through transition we see transformations happening. So we see more and more people passionate about taking care of the planet, not feeling that we're cutting down rainforests, not feeling that we're cutting down trees. We're not causing other species of animals to become extinct. We're not allowing the waters to become so heavily polluted and undrinkable. We're not allowing the air to become so heavily polluted and unbreathable. We're making changes. We're transforming And the reason why we're doing this is because the collective is behind that energy. Once the collective is behind that energy, nothing in creation can stop that. That is the majority flow. That is again why we're seeing so much changes on the planet right now. Because the collective has awoken, and it is said, we're taking care of the planet. We are going to oppose any particular type of systematic processes that will harm this planet, that will harm our environment, that will harm each other. And we will take a stand with that, and our voices will cry very loudly for transformation to take place, and we will become the enactments. We will become the gears of those transformations. Congratulations, that is just like Drugstore Joe becoming a musician, right? We're now moving into a heavily polluted collective earth, into a transitioning, healing, developing earth with a collective consciousness that is working with their own planet. And within the next few years, we're going to see major changes as it represents actually moving into a whole new earth, because we're making those transformations possible. It is the energy and the momentum of the collective consciousness that is allowing the earth to become healed once again, for it to be able to breathe again, for it to feel that all of its nature can now be replenished and regenerated. Because we have decided we're the only ones here, really, in regards to being caretakers, to being stewards of the surface of the planet Earth, and that we have to take care of it. Extraterrestrials are not going to come down, land their ships, and say, oh, just step aside, humans, we got this, we'll take care of it. No, they're never going to do that, because that's not their job. That's not their responsibility. They are not contracted here to come down and be the stewards and to babysit us, right? That's all part of us. So again, this is all part of free will governance. This is us being able to understand that there are boundaries based upon what can be done collectively. And again, that's the big word. Collectively, on a group level, what can be done. In regards to yourself, whatever you have the capability to imagine through rapport and relationship can therefore be the parallel versions of yourself that you see, that you experience, that you can become, right? So through meditation, absolutely, you can see a lot of incredible parallel versions of yourself, to being able to make contact with them, because again, there's some type of rapport. So this is why we only have a certain amount of beings that are available to us that we can develop a rapport with, because that's all that relationship has touched as it relates to ourselves. But as we extend relationship and we use imagination to talk to us about new concepts, we will start bringing in new parallel versions of ourselves that we never thought could exist. Can we imagine a version of ourselves as a complete gaseous nebula, right? Being able to look into that as a monadic intelligence. Can we look into the idea of a version of us being a star? Because that exists, and we need to feel what it is like to become a star, right? That is a parallel version of ourselves on a monadic consciousness level, on a group consciousness level. We all have these capabilities to access these versions of parallel selves, because when you begin to build a bridge, an allotted bridge between yourself and another parallel self, and you start to feel what it is to be them, now you'll start getting concepts from them, which means that you will start obtaining new memory, which means memory will now start to become part of your reality, where you are receiving this type of new ideas, new concepts, and even experiences that you have had on other worlds, in other dimensional Earths, because you have built a bridge. You have created something in regards to relationship rapport that has allowed this parallel version of yourself to come into this reality and say, hey, let's get together. I have a lot to talk to you about. And so however that particular parallel version is, maybe it's a scientist, maybe it's again an extraterrestrial on another planet, maybe it's an extra dimensional version of yourself, maybe it's an elemental, maybe it's a fairy, whatever it may be. As long as you're willing to build that bridge by again connecting at least halfway, just to get that feeling of what it is like to be a fairy. Well, maybe this fairy has wings. Maybe I'm just imagining if I can just close my eyes and I can just feel my wings flutter and I can see myself moving up. And I just feel this instant love for nature. I'm landing on leaves. I'm going through flowers, and I'm now entering other realities that are completely saturated with all these beautiful leaves and greenery. everywhere. It's like there's not even a sky, it's just greenery. It's beautiful, right? So what am I doing right now? I'm tapping into what it would be like to become that extra dimensional being, to become that fairy, that little pixie, right? I'm utilizing the state of my imagination, and I'm allowing the relationship to guide me based upon what it feels like to be that little pixie, that little fairy. And that is basically the permissions that I have given to actually access a parallel version of myself. And when I do that enough and enough and enough and enough, and I really appreciate this experience, I really value this experience, now there's going to be other versions of myself that can be of that pixie energy, of that fairy energy. And now they can start coming into my reality, and I can start learning things from them. Why? Because I opened a bridge. That is how powerful imagination is. And this is the entire catalyst to everything that represents parallel realities, parallel selves, and parallel experiences. Imagination. It's the most powerful thing you can ever imagine in that form of expression. But again, it is the imagination that allows us to build these bridges, that allows us to transform our perspectives and looking into different parallel versions of something that we never thought we would become. When I was training with Adronis, and again learning how to channel him, all I had to do was feel his energy and get an impression about what his energy is like. And seeing that he is a very, very direct, loving, but very direct and grounded, heavy masculine energy. And I really just started to incorporate that into me. And it was just that direct connection, because we started off with very small, simple, subconscious memory engrams. And it started to spark, and it started to spark more as I channeled him more, and I channeled him more, and I channeled him more through automatic writing at first, and then I came into vocal channeling. Because I was just so fascinated with Adronis. I wanted to understand him a lot more. I wanted to connect with him a lot more. I started to just allow him into my body energetically and feel what it was like to be him. And then, of course, as soon as I channel him, bam, the transformation takes place, and he is this brilliant, incredible spiritual teacher of Sirius, the multi-dimensional mentor, right? And that is how it happened. All I did was allowing my imagination to guide me and feel what it was like to be this Sirian consciousness, and allow this Sirian consciousness to express itself through me in any particular way it wished, because I trusted it, right? The same thing goes with every other parallel version of ourselves. That's all we have to do, is build a relationship and allow this relationship of this parallel version to communicate with us. So again, we can do these in guided meditations. In fact, that's something I would like to try with everybody right here, right now, that is tuning in. We're going to do a parallel self guided meditation. So why don't we go ahead and get ourselves really comfortable, wherever you are. If you're standing up, if you're watching this on the street, well, check out the recording. If you're not able to sit down and relax yourself right now, that's okay. Go back to the recording later and give this a try. But let's get ourselves into a nice, relaxed, comfortable posture, making sure that our body is free of any particular points of strain. And let's just go ahead now and close our eyes. Again, just straightening yourself out, letting yourself become nice and loose. And let's now just take a deep breath in through our nose. And slowly letting it out through our mouth. Relaxing ourselves deeper and deeper. Taking a deep breath in. And a deep breath out. And one last time, taking a deep breath in. And a deep breath out. Let's just relax our mind. Let's relax our thoughts. Let's relax our feelings and our emotions. And let's encourage stillness in this moment. And as you feel the energies of stillness beginning to fill your being, just allow that energy to replenish you. Allow regeneration here and now. Anything that may have represented effort, conflict, anything that takes you out of this moment, let it be loved. Let it be aligned to the energies of stillness, the energies of subtlety that are available to you now. Let it be brought in. And just through your natural rhythm of breathing, feeling that energy of stillness, relaxing you deeper and deeper and deeper. And just very gently, I want you to imagine that you are opening your mind's eye now. The mind's eye, the third eye, the brow chakra. Just imagining that this eye is now opening up all the way. And as you open your mind's eye, you are now surrounded in a beautiful void. A void that only contains your energy. A void that only contains your mind. A void that only contains your spirit. And as you look through this void, you are imagining that a very large mirror has manifested itself directly in front of you. And just with your mind's eye, contained within this void realm, see yourself rising up within the mind. And you are walking over to this mirror. I want you just to take a very hard look at how your body appears. Does your body represent an identicalness to how you look physically? Or do you see a new avatar contained in this realm? Just be aware of how your astral avatar body appears in this realm through the mirror. For this represents the reflection of your characteristics, of your being, of who you truly are as an astral entity. It is your true form. One form of trueness that represents how you decide to form a relationship in regards to the energies that you are now. And that this mirror just represents that of a soul mirror, which means everything that is contained within your soul is capable of showing itself within this mirror. And with your mind's eye right now, I want you to imagine that you are projecting an intention to attract a parallel version of yourself that you are familiar with in relationship. For example, do you see yourself as a teacher, a musician, a painter, an astronaut, another being existing beyond Earth, an elemental, a fairy, an elf? Whatever you may feel you have a representation with, just allow that intention now to be projected into the mirror. I wish to see myself as this parallel version that I have now assigned. Let it be so, my soul mirror. And just be aware of the reflection that comes into the mirror. And when you are able to see an image of this parallel version of yourself, just imagining that you are able to hold out your hand and place your hand very, very gently upon the mirror, as to invite in an appreciation, a greeting, a simple hello. And as your parallel self is now looking across the mirror to you, this parallel self is here to answer any questions you have, perhaps of how you can integrate energies, integrate characteristics, integrate behaviors of this particular energy. I want you to spend the next 1 to 2 minutes of your time now interfacing, dialoguing, and communicating with this parallel self. Start asking questions, for they may also have questions for you. So let's take this next 1 to 2 minutes of silence for you to have an opportunity to communicate with your parallel self through the mirror, through your own soul mirror, right here and right now. You may begin. Just giving about another 30 seconds for this interaction. Another 10 seconds. Starting to come back into your own awareness now. And give thanks, love, and appreciation to the parallel version of yourself that has appeared through your own soul mirror. Wish them well. Give them those continual blessings. And realize that they are always a part of you. That there is no goodbye. They are within you. And that everything that they have conversed together with you today, let that be reflective into your own being now. Let that sink in. And let's again take a deep breath in through our nose and out through our mouth. And let's just send loving appreciation and blessings to our own soul mirror and to our own void of consciousness, containing our own mind and our own spirit. And let us now just start to come back into the present moment, coming back into physical reality, obtaining all that we have experienced here in this realm to return with us as well. And just take this moment now just to wring out your fingers, wring out your hands, your toes, wiggle them all out. And just feel that physical sensation of returning back into the body. And when you are ready, you may feel free to open your eyes and return. All right. Welcome back, YouTube land. So, I would love to hear about how perspectives showed up relating to other people. What type of parallel perspectives came into the mirror for all of you? For those of you on the chat, if you want to share your experience, please feel free to do so. I was basically just having a communication with Adronis, very briefly, in the mirror. And I think one of the conversations I had with him was, you're pretty damn tall. You know? He's like, well, you can be that tall too if you want. So, right, just a little simple conversation I had with Adronis in the mirror. But again, everybody has the capability of communicating with some version of their parallel selves in that way. And what triggered it, what created that invocation of invitation was your own intention. Invocation of intention is invitation, right? There's the 3 I's. Invocation of intention is invitation. when you invite in these parallel versions of yourself that you have some type of rapport with, just utilizing that idea of an analogy of a soul mirror, this is your direct dialogue to parallel versions of yourself. This is how you are able to obtain a great deal of wisdom. This is how you're able to even have agreements with many different parallel versions of yourselves, to even have some type of association with you, be it dream state, be it meditation, be it again memory implantation as well too. If there is enough collective agreement with the parallel versions that you are able to discover, you can have amazing wisdom experiences coming through, new memories coming together as well too, as you invite in that parallel self. This parallel self that you're seeing in the mirror is not just some made-up fantasy. They actually exist, and imagination is that beautiful benefit that allows us to communicate in between the worlds, in between the aspects of imagination, in between these realms, and actually being able to have some type of relationship. Sure, they are not physical in the idea of how we understand the physical body and our physical reality right now, but you're having that natural conversation because imagination is the benefactor tool here that is allowing this conversation to take place. So I really want all of you just to dwell upon that, to take some time out of your day and go back into your soul mirror, going back into the void, and just allowing yourself to have these communications with other parallel selves. Tell about your day. Maybe your friends, maybe your family are busy and no one's around to hear about your day. Go inside and just go back into that void and just open up your third eye, open up your mind's eye, open up your brow chakra, and just go back into that void, look into that soul mirror. I'd like to talk to a parallel version of myself today. And I just want to be able to, again, invite the invocation by invitation. And now have that parallel version in. Tell them about your day. Tell them about how you're feeling. And let them respond. Let them have a great conversation with you. And spend this time in meditation conversing with yourself. So Drona says that is the understanding, right? Is being able to go inside and just have these inner conversations with you. That's how powerful your imagination is. And this is what we as human beings have not yet understood, is the true power of our imagination, of our intention, of our focus. It builds worlds, right? It just constructs everything. We are here again as part of a collective agreement, but we are making our own world out of this collective. That's the beautiful thing about this entire life, is what we can bring to a collective approach. Okay, so let's go back into the presentation slide here. So, aligning to different parallel selves, as we just did with the meditation. Shifting to parallel realities and interacting with parallel selves. So again, we have interacted with parallel selves through the mirror exercise, but shifting to parallel realities. Well, let's see, Brad, can we do that? Can we shift into parallel selves? Well, again, yes. But again, it's all part of the relationship that we are able to obtain through the memories as we understand ourselves. Because as we're part of a collective grid, as we're part of a collective earth, the friendships that we create with other parallel versions of ourselves will only incubate into this vessel. And it will allow this vessel to express itself exquisitely based upon the memories it has obtained through the wholeness of itself. So the wholeness of itself through this particular vessel is allowing us to explore a beautiful world that we are able to build, construct, and being able to experience through all that we understand in collective relationship. So that is the world that you bring. It's not to say that you are going to close your eyes, open your eyes, and all of a sudden you're on an earth with a purple with polka dot sky and with purple water, right? It's not to say that that's going to happen. It's more so in the idea that that earth exists and you're able to access that through the conduit of imagination, through the conduit of meditation, through the conduit of dreams. But when you're here in the physical realm, it is all about being grounded. And again, this is why we're here. We're learning the approach of being grounded and bringing spirituality, bringing our own spiritual essence into a grounded platform that we have collectively agreed on to see if we can work together. To see that through our imaginations, through our invocations, through our invitations about being able to invite ourselves into this collective reality, to see if we can all get together and get along. And that's realizing that, again, one of the biggest parallel selves we see on a daily basis is each other. and that each and every single one of us are just different versions of ourselves here inside this now continuum. So we have all these people, your parents, your mother, your father, your husband, your wife, your brother, your sister, your cousins, your best friends, your co-workers, your boss, etc. All just different versions of the one, right? And so we're just looking into all these different versions. And as we understand that, as we start playing with our parallel selves, and we start working and understanding how they think, how they act, how they behave, what their memories are like, etc., we start to get more of a concept, because we have gone outside ourselves in regards to this personalized ego construct. And we're now starting to see that the people we meet all have their own different forms of aspects of characteristics. And now we're easier on people because we have spent enough time to really work in understanding other perspectives rather than what the ego complex creates within ourselves. And this is how you create such great friendships, such great connections of interconnectedness, of oneness back with each other, because you have invited in the love and appreciation of understanding each other. I mean, for sure, I've certainly had people in the past that I've held grudges with and had problems with in that sense. But it's really when I come into this state and I look into those parallel selves and I realize, oh, those people were being so harsh, or they're being so mean, or being so rude, or being just unbelievable. But then I look at all these parallel selves and saying that this is something that is a part of me that I have attracted and that I needed to look at, in that sense of saying that no matter how harsh or how awful a person may seem in regards to that type of context, we look into something in regards to their perspective and we find humility there. We find balance in that particular way. And so that is, again, a really great appreciation I have for an exercise like this. So I want to thank all of you again for tuning into this presentation today. Just again, looking into the past, the future, the now, the boundaries, the free will governance, aligning to different realities, shifting to parallel realities, interacting with parallel selves. This is all part of simultaneous lifetimes. Being able to notice that this is all available to us right now. We don't have to wait till tomorrow. We didn't have to do this yesterday. We have this available to us right now. All right, so now we're going to go ahead and move into Q&A with the chat room. So I'm just going to go ahead and bring up the chat room here. And I'm just going to kind of go over the comments and to see if anybody else have posted any experiences they had with the mirror exercise. So let me just scroll up the list. We got quite a bit of comments here. Okay. I am going to be bringing in Jonas here in a couple minutes, so if you guys do have questions for Jonas, then we can get through. I'm just kind of going through everything here. I just want to firstly just kind of take a look at the chat room and see if anybody had any experiences about connecting with parallel versions of themselves. Someone just says, Brad, please do more guided meditations. That was one of the easiest transitions I ever had. Oh, I plan to. So I will. I'm definitely looking to do a lot more guided meditations as well too. Once I just get a little bit more settled, actually get back into my own space, I'm going to be doing a lot of work. And definitely guided meditations is one of the things I want to do a lot more. Okay, so Killian says, wow, I believe I touched on an aspect of myself known as Boris. This was very energetic, even though, oh, sorry, I didn't get the end of it. Very good, Boris, I like that. All sorts, ancient, high-tech, mostly non-humanoid. I was a butterfly, or a dragonfly, in the prehistoric past. No word, pictures, or hugs, trees, and amazing, sorry, no word, pictures of hugs, trees, and amazing landscape. Beautiful. And that's it. You know, we can even connect to non-humanoid versions of ourselves as well too. We can look into the idea of us being a butterfly, a dragonfly, a lizard, you know, a dog, a cat. You know, that's the beauty of our soul, is that we don't just limit it to the idea of human experience, but to many other different forms. I met a dark green reptile being with red eyes. He was from Orion. He told me that me loving him would help him. Great, that's excellent. So that shows like a healing relationship that is happening there, Annette. So Annette basically stated that. Let's see. Alicia says, "Ooh, I saw a reptile type being with red eyes, but light bluish white skin. Orion being. Thanks for the info." Very good. I'm very happy to see all these connections that people were able to make in the mirror here. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and move up to the questions now, because we're going to go ahead and I'm going to bring in Jonas here in a moment, because I knew that there was a question here for him. There's one here. Just wanted to see if there was another one. Just be one sec, guys. I'm just getting the questions going here. Okay, so I have one here from Anthony, and he asks, Adronis, can you share your perspective on the history of Antarctica? Have any ancient civilizations lived there? All right. So Anthony, I will go ahead and bring Adronis in, and we can talk a little bit about that in regards to ancient civilizations from Antarctica. And so Adronis has briefly touched about this in a previous video, but again, this will just be a bit of a refresher. So I'll be one moment now as I connect with Adronis' energy. Here we go. Terra Soul Star Sirius Adronis We are here at this time, and we bid you greetings, and thank you very much for the opportunity of this interaction today. I am Adronis of Sirius, sending love, appreciation, and gratitude to all of you, and thank you very much, Anthony, for your question. In regards to your question, was there indeed an ancient civilization that existed within Antarctica? As we have stated before, yes. These were what you would know as prophets that represented the teachings of the Law of One. They were again another particular civilization indigenous to your own plane. It is the idea of what you would know as certain forms of continental shifts and different forms of earth changes that had caused the idea of the great continent of Antarctica to move itself into the state of its alignment as you understand it now. But during that time, it was once, in that sense, a beautiful, lushful paradise. But much in regards to these beings were somewhat similar to what you would know as your ancient Lemurian civilization, that they too were all about the idea of building and designing specific grids upon the planet in regards to the orientation of how Antarctica was at that time, thousands of years ago, to giving the idea of allowing Earth itself to reach higher states of ascension based upon previous eras of harvest. And that many of these particular beings that once occupied Antarctica moved themselves into spiritual ascension, very similar to how the Maya did. And so basically the remains of their civilization is through the idea of the ruins. It's through the idea of the temples. It's through the idea of the pyramids that exist upon Antarctica today. But again, they were also a very advanced civilization. Yes, once like your Lemurian culture, once like your Atlantean culture, but again a very peaceful civilization. They also believed in the aspects of unification, again connecting into being the philosophers of the Law of One teachings, being able to bring all back together as one. But again, there was a certain shift that occurred approximately 5,500 years ago or so, that represented their own shift of moving past this physical plane, a certain form of, shall we say, solar alignment that allowed a window to move themselves into harvest. And that is basically what took place. And we could say that approximately 1.5 to 1.8 million of these particular beings reached a state of harvest over 5,500 years ago of your time. And that is basically how they had left behind all of the remains of the codes that contain themselves together within these ruins, within these pyramids, within all of the architecture that remain in Antarctica. For they themselves were taught by the inner stewards of your world that we refer to as the Argothan Network. They were taught in many of the ways in regards to how to build, to how to construct, to how to develop these beautiful temples, these different forms of architecture that represented shifts on a grid level that allowed their eventual ascension to take place. This is what we can share in regards to the history as it relates to the ancient Antarctican civilization. We thank you. All right, great. Some very good information there about Antarctica. So, and I don't even think it was even referred to as Antarctica back in those times. Perhaps something in regards to a different name. But yeah, it's very fascinating looking into that culture, and I'm just very amazed about seeing all the different type of architecture, ancient ruins, and pyramids that have been discovered in Antarctica. Okay, we'll move on to the next question here. Question is from Annette. Annette asks, Corey Good have got information from Sphere Being Alliance that only 300,000 people on Earth is ready for ascension, moving into fourth density. Is this correct, and have this changed lately? No, there's a misunderstanding about that, and this is something that's a little bit different. And again, sometimes this can be misunderstood in that way. There is basically two things happening right now, and basically one represents advancement. A second represents spiritual ascension. Now, spiritual ascension is basically where certain people upon this planet will eventually transition themselves into light and move physically off this plane of karma, off the karmic wheel, off the wheel of time, and return back into non-physicality. That is spiritual ascension, and that is basically where 0.04% of the Earth population is going. Now, there is another aspect to where the majority of us are going, and this is referred to as advancement. This is what Adronis has been talking about since the beginning of the time, since I've been channeling him, is that there are two particular paths that are happening here. And again, this is basically what you would know as the spiritual ascension crowd in the very high percentages, as it represents the scale of ascension. Okay? So basically we have what we would know as the lower negative scale in that way. That would represent people who are very much into manipulation, into controlling people, into greed, into horribleness, a lot of the gruesome stuff. And they basically represent the negative scale, and that would represent the idea of the survival crowd in that way. They are staying with what they created. So like a lot of the cabals, a lot of the gangsters, a lot of the mafia, etc., all of those particular type of people are staying with what they created because fear has become their reality. So they're creating that, they're staying with that. Then of course there is the mid to somewhat high level that represents the idea of the advancers. And advancement is the idea of us moving from a third density to a fourth density construct. The beings in that sense that ascend themselves past light are not going into a fourth density concept. They are moving more into non-physical dimensions. They're moving more into non-physical densities. So it is not so much in the idea of this planetary advancement that is leaving, again, about 99.6% of the population high and dry. That's not what's happening here. It's the idea in that sense that this very small reservation of numbers, that again 300,000, 400,000, even optimistically looking up to 1 million people, will be these specific people that really are not on YouTube. And they're not in this modern society at all. I'm certainly not among them, not even close. These particular people have basically withdrawn themselves from anything that we would consider to be a modern society, period. Again, I do not feel that any particular speaker, any particular type of public teacher, any type of author has actually included themselves as this group. This group is very, very remote. They really do not have any particular type of human contact. If they do, it's very minuscule, or it's through their own particular collective groups. But these are the ones that are basically reaching a state of ascension in regards to the idea of spiritual ascension, where they are able to work together in these particular alignments to come, where there will be certain forms of coronal mass ejections taking place upon the planet and actually empowering the grid. This is not meant to burn all the life off the planet. That's not what's happening here. These coronal mass ejections are specifically mathematically implemented at a certain time to, yes, project itself towards the Earth and is actually firing up a grid. As these grids become fire, there is an inversion effect that's happening. As this inversion effect happens, they are magnetically attaching themselves through cords that are actually allowing this grid to become empowered, very highly ignited. And they are utilizing the energy of these coronal mass ejections to actually lift the physical body into a transformational light being state. And so they're actually becoming beings of light again. And they are moving themselves off the planet. So it is basically a state of firing up the furnace in that way, or firing up the activation grid of this planet, and moving themselves at that appropriate window of conjunction to moving themselves off the wheel of time, of karma. In order for somebody like that to actually do that, this requires a mental discipline that is extremely advanced, that they have actually gone through, very similar to what one would go through a pyramid initiation, is actually being able to go inside the sarcophagus of a king's chamber and actually being able to go through all of the dark night of the soul, all of those shadow experiences, and come out the other side an enlightened being, or an enlightening being. And through those particular types of initiation, the second phase of that would being able to carry themselves into the initiation of the firing of the grid of the Earth ascension matrix, and basically being able to return back into non-physicality through that love, through that oneness connection that they have with the Earth. So again, this is basically requiring such a peaceful mind of so much humility, where you feel interconnected to all things, where you are truly one with the universe, where you are truly one with everything that exists. And as I stated, I'm nowhere close to that type of mindset. Even I remember even saying that Corey Good and David Wilcock have stated they themselves are nowhere close to this concept. Again, a lot of the spiritual experts I see on YouTube, nowhere close to that kind of concept, right? So this is again related to a different type of ascension. This is what's known as harvest. Okay? Harvest is being able to transit yourself completely off the wheel of karma and time, space and matter, and being able to return back into the non-physicality. So we could basically estimate that as a type of 6th density or 7th density that would represent moving off the physicalized bridge, the quasi-physical bridge of time. So again, there is advancement that's taking place here, which this has already happened. So basically the planet has already moved into a 4th density abridged aspect of consciousness. This is a 4th density acclaimed planet right now. Again, this has been happening since December 21st, 2012, when singularity inverted upon itself. And now we have a masculine and feminine universe, and there is a rainbow bridge that has connected, and we have been walking across this rainbow bridge. Now again, understand that these coronal mass ejections, even though they feel like they're quite frightening, are not something that is going to, quote-unquote, exterminate everything off the planet. That's not what's happening here. It's the idea that a lot of these particular forms of coronal mass ejections that are to come, yeah, will certainly wreak havoc with certain forms of systems. There will definitely be some certain forms of atmospheric changes. We may be feeling a lighter, I guess you could say a smaller window of daylight in that time. But this is still, again, only just theoretical. We still don't know what happens here. From what Adronis has also stated is that there are a lot of buffers or prisms in this local star system, or what he would refer to as the inner galaxy here, and that are actually buffering a lot of this particular coronal mass ejections as they come through. And so this is basically, I guess you could say, an induced aspect of advancement and ascension that has been taking place. So it is not about the idea of only 0.04% of the entire world's population just getting off this planet and 99.6% staying behind to burn. That's not what it's about at all. And again, I can understand if people get confused in that way. And that's not what harvest is. Harvest has nothing to do really with a 3rd density to 4th density integration. That is advancement. That is a trans-dimensional advancement. And that is the second thing about what's happening here. And again, the majority of us are on that particular path of moving into a 3rd density to 4th density planet, which has already happened, and now we're still going through that integrative processes within the next 50 to 100 years before 4th density is fully acclaimed here on this planet. If we were just here to basically be on a ticking time bomb, waiting for a coronal mass ejection to belch us off the planet, there would be a lot of measures being taken place right now from super federations that would actually begin to evacuate the planet. And I do not see that happening. Then again, it would not make any particular sense also to have a bunch of people going through these states of advancement only to have them belched off the planet with a super solar flare, right? That's not what's happening. That is not the case here. So again, there will be some changes. There will certainly be certain forms of, again, transformations taking place with the planet as these coronal mass ejection storms happen. And they will be happening. Jonah says probably about 2 years we'll start to feel a lot more of them becoming stronger. But I feel that this is going to be something that's going to span at least over 10, 15, 20 years at least. So there's still a lot more to do on this planet, and it's not about worrying about being belched off the planet with a gigantic sneezing solar flare, right? So that's what I can share of this perspective. And again, many of us are on the path of advancement, not ascension. So again, ascension is something very, very different, and that is representing harvest. So with all due respect to Corey Good as well too, he's a wonderful person. I think a lot of his information is legit, but again, it's just a lot of stuff relating to advancement and ascension isn't really quite known to him yet, and so he's still just attempting to get a grasp of all these understandings. And basically the blue avian beings can tell him, yes, this is harvest that's coming up, and this is relating to the idea of 0.4% of people of your planet being harvested off the world. There's nothing in there in regards to a third density to fourth density advancement, which is very, very different, because we have actually been spending all of these decades having these transmutational DNA effects happen and being able to move us into this crossing of a bridge, crossing of a threshold from third density to fourth density. So that is the advancement path that we're on. So ascension and harvest is something that is very, very different. So I hope that has answered your question, Annette, relating to that. Again, I was actually thinking of doing a video with Adronis on this, and I still might. But anyways, hope that makes sense to you guys. Okay. I'm just going to take one more question here, guys, because I do have to wrap it up here pretty quick. So we're going to take one last question here from Earth Rooster 1717. Question is, hi Brad, I had an entity come in my mind's eye while falling asleep. He was in a cockpit of some sorts, male human looking but with feline features. Who is he? All right. So what I would ask you to do, Earth Rooster, if you're still listening right now, is just take a deep breath in through your nose. And take a deep breath out through your nose. And as you do this, just go ahead and expand yourself, expand your field as I connect with this. All right, the basic feeling I'm getting is kind of like a distant cousin. A cousin that has an association with you in a different reality, or a different, again, lifetime, where you had basically chosen to come here. And that the idea of this spaceship in that sense is how you are, again, it's kind of like propelling yourself. It's also used in the form of an analogy as well too. You're blazing into new unfound territory. You're going into new areas of being as well too. Now this being in that sense is indeed a part of a civilization that you were once a part of as well too. And that you in that sense left that civilization to come here to Earth and being able to expand yourself in that particular way. So I'm basically feeling that you can connect with this particular person. He's just referring to himself as Rigel. Okay, so that's R-I-G-E-L. He's referring to himself as that particular name, as Rigel. So that name means anything to you, again, we know that that's a star within the Orion constellation, but Rigel is the name I'm getting for that particular being. So I would say call him into your spirit mirror, into your soul mirror, and get an understanding about what his relationship is with you, and call upon him in that name and see what he has to say. It's just a feeling that he is a distant cousin, and he's giving you an analogy that you're going places, you're exploring new territory, you're going into uncharted territory with a lot of your spiritual development and spiritual exploration right now. Okay, so that's what I can share with you. Okay, maybe I can squeeze in one more question here. Let me just see if I can go down the list a bit more. Squeeze in one more. This will just be for me. Just want to answer this real quick. Okay, so here's one that's a little bit more in relation to what we talked about tonight. This one is from Katie, and Katie says, question, can past timelines be collapsed with our choices we make in our current lives? Is our past and future lives all happening at the same time? Past and future lives are all happening at the same time, yes. And are we able to collapse past timelines with our choices we make in our current lifetimes? Collapse in a way, yes, because understand that those parallel timelines in regards to our past are still happening. So they're not really being collapsed. They're only just being collapsed from our point of view because we no longer give them power. So this is basically why I say that there is law of attraction and repulsion, right? So you are repelling that energy of those memories that relate to your past that represent trauma. You're repelling those energies out of your reality and now infusing attraction of energies that serve. So basically this is what we refer to as healing timelines. So we're basically in that sense taking that repulsion of the timelines out, and we're attracting a new timeline that represents a memory that serves. So basically being able to give forgiveness to the energies of a past trauma is being able to heal that timeline. So you are repelling everything that represents the emotional trauma of that timeline, and now you're being able to attract something that represents a forgiveness aspect to that timeline now. So when you look back at that timeline saying, yeah, I'm okay with that now because I've forgiven that. I realized what happened, I realized what I needed to do, I realized that where the people were in that particular timeline, that is how they were basically aligned in that time. I forgive that. I allow that to be liberated. I move into liberation with that. So you're no longer looking back into that timeline and being horribly affected by it, right? So you've healed the emotional scarring of what that timeline represents. So it's not even really the timeline that we're actually healing. It's the emotional trauma contained from what that timeline has provided us to feel, that this is what it meant to us. It meant a trauma, right? So we're healing the trauma from that particular timeline. As we heal the trauma from that particular timeline, the timeline now aligns itself into a vibration that represents our love, our acceptance, our forgiveness of that particular timeline. But that timeline will always happen in that way. So we're basically renewing it with the transformation of an emotional trauma into something that is liberating, into something that is accepting, into something that is forgiving. And so that's basically what we're doing in regards to these healing timeline therapies. Okay? Thank you very much, Katie, for your question. Thank you everybody again for providing your questions and for interacting here tonight with the Reality Whisperer Webcast as we looked into simultaneous timelines. So again, feel free to join me next week, next Tuesday at 6 p.m. Pacific, 9 p.m. Eastern. Again, I'm looking to get my special guest, Bob Hickman, on for next week. I think everything is good, but I'm just going to be double checking him with him in regards to this. If there are any changes, then I will certainly put it up on Facebook, and you guys can follow me on Facebook, facebook.com/BradJohnson79. So you guys can follow me on Facebook as well too. That's where I put all my updates. So thank you again, everybody, for joining me and enjoying this wonderful interaction tonight. I really had a great time, and I hope you all enjoyed it as well too. And I will speak to you all next week. Take care. Much love. Namaste. And may it be well with you. Goodbye.